Dear teachers, this video recording is to show you how to use the By Me series and the corresponding digital software. Now, most of you must have received by now a access code to the digital. To activate the digital access code, you need to go to digital.bilingualbyme.com. Once you come here, if you are not already registered, you will need to register. To register, you will need to click here, to click register, choose that you're a teacher, and progress. You must have received a user code. You will need the code at this process. Now, I have already registered, so we'll enter. The first thing you will need to do after you activate your codes is to download the offline application. In order to download the offline application, click on offline option and choose whichever device suits you and your interactive whiteboard operating system. I'm guessing most of you will need to use the Windows version. However, if you wish to work online, you can also work online. What you will need to do is go to My Books and choose the levels that you would like to look at. Now, you won't have this many books. You will only have fewer books. And some of you have level 2, some of you have level 3, some of you have both 2 and 3. Now, once you come to your account, you will see that there is a range of options here. Each level has 5 options. Within each level, you have what we call the Students' Book Interactive Whiteboard, Unit Resources, Digital Activities, the Activity Book, and what we call General Resources. Let's now take a look at the Student Book Interactive Whiteboard and the corresponding Unit Resources. Now, as you can see, this is taking time to open up online. So you can also work offline. I will now show you what the screen looks like when you are working offline. Now, this is the view of the offline application. As you can see, some of the content is downloaded and some is not. What you will need to do is go to your corresponding level, whichever level you are using. But let's assume we are using Natural Science Level 2. Click on the Student Book Interactive Whiteboard, and download the module content that you wish to use. So, for example, Matter and Forces is already downloaded, but the review isn't. If you click on the cloud here, it will download the content. Once it is downloaded, you can view this content offline. Now, I would like to remind you that you can also access this content from the online site. Now, let's take a quick look at the unit. Okay, so let's choose the Matter and Forces menu unit from here. As you can see, every module begins with a picture. Now, to zoom into this picture, you can use the magnifying glass here. To zoom out as well, you can use the same. Or you can do full page view. To go out of full page view, just click on this again. Now, each picture lesson also has a song. To play the song, just click on the exercise. Audio will appear. Likewise, you have some questions here. If you want to zoom in, just click on the questions and the page will zoom in. Now, this page is one of the most important parts of the module. This is where you do 3 things. Number 1, you revise or find out what students know about this topic. And in order to do so, you need to ask the students questions about the picture. There are already some questions provided for you here, but the questions you ask should not only focus on the language of the picture. So you could potentially ask them, what are they doing? What do you see? But you also need to think about the topic, Matter and Forces. So for example, what are these made of? Can you find different categories of objects based on what they are made of? Can you find things that are fragile or rigid, or things that are transparent or they are opaque? You could also potentially focus on behavior. So who is being safe here? Who is not so cautious? What is dangerous? What is not a safe activity here? And then you can finally talk about the kids' lives and ask about if they have these objects in their houses and what are they similar, are they different? But this is mainly a speaking lesson where you would, number one, find out what the students already know about the topic, and then two, start talking about the content that they're going to focus on so that they can become ready for this unit. But don't forget, you also need to focus on the social awareness and the behavior types. To go to the next page, you will need to click on the arrow. And again, from now on, the structure of the book differs from level to level. I repeat, in every level, we begin with a picture, but this is a module from level 2. But if we look at a picture from module 3, you will see that in level 3, again, we have a picture for the matter topic, and again, we have a song, and again, we have questions. But this time, when you look at the next page, you will see that there is a slight difference here. Yes, we both have a short script text here to introduce the topic to the students, followed by some questions about the topic. But when we look at level 2, you will see that on the second page, we have more content and explanation of the topic, followed by exercises. However, if we look at level 3, we will see that this is not the case. We do not have introductory text here. On the contrary, we have an exercise. And in this exercise, the main aim is to develop the children's thinking skills. So here, there is a categorization exercise, for example. So they need to categorize objects into groups according to what they are made of, add things to these groups. So when you look at this, you will see that there are different groups of objects according to their features. But this is not the case in level 2. In level 2, you will see that we have an introductory reading text followed by activities. Now, let's now very briefly look at activity types. Following the reading, you will see that we generally have a reading comprehension type exercise. But we also have exercises that have these magnifying glass images next to them. Now, the answers to these questions, nobody really knows. And we need to find the answers to these questions. In order to find the answer to these questions, you will need to do some research. So, whenever you have an exercise that has this icon, you will need to be prepared to do an experiment in the classroom. And to do the experiment, you will need to make sure that you have your material necessary. So for this exercise, what kind of material will you need? You will need a bowl, you will need a rock, apple, ball, spoon, and bottle, because you're going to find out, will they sink or float? And the only way that students can find out the answer to this is if you do the experiment in the classroom. Now, I also want to look at the language. Now, this is a skills lesson, and you will be discussing with the children the topic, will these objects sink or float? And you will do an experiment to find the answer. But while you are doing this, you will be using the speaking skill and a certain list of language items. Now, which language items can you think of when you are doing this experiment? What questions will you need to be asking your students, and what answers will they be need to giving you? So you can think of one language item and focus on that. My example would be the will. Future model here. Will the rock float or sink? And the vocabulary will be float or sink, plus the objects. However, If you want to review and find out what the kids know, you can also talk about the material's features. So a rock. Describe a rock. Is it heavy? Is it hard? Is it soft? Is it fragile? Is it man-made, natural? An apple. Is it smooth, rough, heavy, light, man-made, natural? What color? And the same goes on for all of these objects. But that would be more to find out about what do the children know about this topic. Every exercise requires a preparation phase to find out what the students already know about this topic. And every exercise also requires a follow-up. So you find out which of these float and which of these sink. And then you need to think about what can I ask to my students next about this topic. For example, maybe you can ask them, which of these objects do they have at home? Can they do an experiment at home? Or do they have similar objects and maybe they could go home and with similar objects do an experiment and report that to you? And etc. Or look into the classroom. Can they find other objects made of these or with these features, and would they sink or float? So you need to think about the pre, while, and post. The pre is mainly to find out what do the kids already know. The while is, in this case, the experiment, and the post is generally to expand the topic to the classroom or outside the classroom, maybe to their houses. Now let's also take a very brief look at the resources. Every unit has unit resources, and you can access the unit resources by clicking on this icon here. So as you can see, you have your resources here. The teacher time saver is a photocopyable worksheet. The presentation is, we have two types of presentations. One of them is a summary of your unit's content. You can listen to this, and you can also go to the next one from here. This is basically a summary, and generally these are used at the end of the unit. As I also said, you have your teacher's notes for this module. Each module has notes for the teachers. It's like your teacher's book. And you can look at the material you need for this unit, the objectives required that you are hoping to achieve, and the process that you will need to go through to achieve those objectives. Now let's go back to our unit resources. You will also notice that we have what we called tests. Two types of tests for each unit. A diagnostic test to find out what the children already know about the unit. This you do before you begin the unit. And you will also see that we have what we call a test to find out how much your students learn at the end of the unit. The answers to these tests are in what we call the test solutions. So the solutions would give you the answers. Now, I will go back to the resources at the home page. Online, just go to the main page which you had opened. If you are offline, just close by clicking on Home and find the corresponding level's resources. As you can see, some of my resources are not downloaded. I don't really think you need to download these. You can just use them offline, online. Let's take a quick look at the online options. So we've already looked at the unit resources, but we will also have a look at the general resources. Which topic were we dealing with? Matter and energy. So you can see we have photocopyable flashcards, links to videos and games. To play these games, you will need to check and make sure that you have access to internet and a flash player, and etc. Please come here, click on these, and find out more about these. Also, come to the digital activities and discover the digital activities available. You will see that you have a range of games that you can play with your students. But again, please make sure that you have Flash Player installed in your computer to play these. To go to the range of exercise you have available, just click on the menu and you will be able to find more exercises. Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope you enjoy using by me. Have a good day.